Hello, this is Reverend Don Lewis coming to you from beautiful Florida. And today our question comes to us from Cher Davis. And Cher writes to ask, is there a particular creation story from among the many creation stories of history that particularly resonates with Corellian philosophy? And in answer to this, I would say that not only is there a particular creation story that resonates with Corellian philosophy, but there is one that is very much fundamental to it, and that is the creation story from the Vangelo delle Streghe. And for those who are not familiar with the Vangelo delle Streghe, it is part of the book known as Aradia, or the Gospel of the Witches, which was published a little over 100 years ago. And it includes the creation story according to a particular branch of Italian witchcraft. And this was adopted very early by the Corellian tradition and has had a lot to do with our point of view. And so my answer to this would be that while we certainly honor all creation stories and regard them as all different ways of looking at the same thing, if you are asking for one that is particularly resonant to or fundamental to our philosophy, this is the one. And some of the reasons for that, in addition to the fact that, again, we adopted it rather early in our history as a tradition, also, it really has to do very much with our understanding of the relationship between goddess and god, spirit and matter, and how these things came to be. Many of the world's creation stories are all about the creation of the physical world. But one of the nice things about many pagan creation stories is that they also deal with the creation of the spiritual world. And the story from the Vangelo delle Streghe is an example of this. It begins with chaos, when all things are possible and all things are one, and goes on to explain how things were set to order in their present form, defines the relationship between goddess and god, and talks about, for example, the creation of the 7 planes and how they were created. Now, it's worth saying that the Corellian understanding of this myth is perhaps a bit elaborated upon from the story as published by Leland, although we would argue that it's all in there, we're just a little bit more explicit about it. But you'll find it in Chapter 2 of our first degree lessons. You can also find it right here at Magic TV in 2 different videos where we talk about it. And again, you would look for that under Lesson 2 of our Wicca lesson series. And as I say, this is important to us not only as a creation myth, but also in terms of how we look at the universe. And one of the things about that is that it really has more to do with the creation of the spiritual world and the relationship between goddess and god and spirit and matter than with the creation of the physical world, which is pretty much left to be explained by science and other means. So when we talk about how the physical world came to be, we have no particular problem with the Big Bang Theory, with evolution, etc., because it's not in any way in conflict with our point of view. And in fact, the story from the Vangelo delle Streghe actually rather tends to support the ordinary scientific way of looking at it, except with a spiritual dimension. So we don't have that dichotomy that some religions have between their spiritual understanding and their scientific understanding. For us, it can go hand in hand, because this is one of our foundational stories, and it allows for that. Another thing about the creation story from the Vangelo delle Streghe is that it also touches upon many other creation stories, some of them much more ancient in terms of their provenance. It's essentially the same creation story that you find, for example, in the religion of Cybele and Attis. It's very similar to the creation story from the Upanishads dealing with Brahma, and very similar to the Pelasgian story of Eurynome and Ophion. And therefore it ties into many things and throws additional light, in our opinion, on how to look at those things. So these are some of the reasons that we regard it as being very important to us and very fundamental to our thinking. And again, you can find that story right here on Magic TV in our first degree video lessons under Lesson 2, or in my book on first degree lessons under Chapter 2. Or, of course, you could look it up in the Vangelo delle Streghe, which I'm sure you can find online. So, that would be my answer to the question. I hope you find it helpful. And if you will recall, earlier this week I said that I was going to, during the month of March, choose one question for each week, which was my favorite, which I thought was the best, and that person would receive a special prize. And for this week, this question is the winner of that prize. The reason I've chosen this question is because it's so existential and allows me to speak to so many things at once, in terms of understanding of deity, of creation, and so forth. So Cher Davis will be receiving the prize for this week, which is a copy of Reverend Don's Super Omnibus of Incantations and Invocations for All Occasions, and I'll be sending that out to her probably early next week. And I hope that she will enjoy that, and I hope that you enjoy the vlog and continue to watch. And next Friday we'll choose another favorite question for the week. And so send in your questions, and maybe you will be the favorite one for that week. I also want to announce that I will be returning to Pagans Tonight Radio in coming weeks, so watch for more announcements about that. And until next time, may you blessed be. Pray for peace. Pray for love. Pray for stability. Pray for the nation where you live. Pray for the world. Reverend Don's Super Omnibus of Incantations and Invocations for All Occasions. Mary Ann Kay and I created this massive compendium of magic and artwork for you to use in any way that you would like. There are literally hundreds of spells and hundreds of illustrations, which can be mixed and matched and used in many different ways. Check it out now at witchghoulstore.com.